FreshPod is created for industry professionals and is intended for educational purposes only. This content is not designed for patients or consumers.
If you want to retain good quality humans in your business, keep them inspired by the purpose and keep talking about that. You say it again, you show them. It's always happening.
Hey guys, welcome back to FreshPod. I'm Loz McGlynn, joined by an absolute legend, Dr. John Delaney.
Hi everyone, great to be here. Whether you're here for business support, community, or just a dose of inspiration, welcome.
Today we're talking people because we absolutely know that growing a clinic doesn't just mean more patients. It means stepping up and managing a team, and for a lot of injectors, that's brand new territory.
According to our 2025 State of Medical Aesthetics report, 67% of clinic owners said they're not confident in how to build and manage a team, and only 31% have formal training and development plans in place.
That's why today's episode is a great one. We're joined by the amazing Ally Atkins. She's Fresh Clinic's Chief of People and Culture, and Ally's helped build Fresh with now over 150 employees. Today, she's going to help you build a team and culture that you can be super proud of.
So welcome Ally Atkins to FreshPod. We're excited to have you here. Ally is our Chief of People and has been instrumental in building the Fresh Clinics team and culture on the inside of the company. Many listeners hopefully are familiar and are fans of the culture and community that exists externally around Fresh Clinics, and that has built through the efforts of all of the members to contribute and create that culture. Inside Fresh, though, if I may say, we've got a really special culture and it's a really great place to work, and a lot of that has to do with you, Ally. So welcome, Ally.
Nice.
Now,
Excited to be on the pod. This is cool.
It's great. And look, many of the podcast episodes we've had so far, some of the chat has been the business owners that form part of our community are healthcare practitioners first and foremost. And so some of the skills around managing a business are less familiar and have had less direct coaching. It's probably also true that some of the elements of good people leadership in a business setting are something that people haven't been taught deliberately. What sort of mindset shifts do you think help people to be good team leaders in a business environment, particularly a small business environment?
Yeah, great question. I think the first mindset shift that you have to make is the mindset shift of I do to now we do. And I think that that's really, really important. What made you successful in starting up your business isn't going to be the same success as what makes you successful as a leader. So I think shifting from that mindset of going, I am now doing everything and have all the answers to everything, to how do I empower, inspire, and support others to have those answers. And I think part of that mindset shift as well is really leaning into leadership foundations. We're just having a conversation actually about this in PNC. And if you are looking at building a house, for example, you need to make sure the slab of the house or your clinic is really, really solid. And that's leaning into some leadership foundations. And I could break it down to a couple of things. I think the mindset you need to get into is, how do I provide clarity for people? How do I bring people on this journey? What has traditionally been your vision for your business now needs to become our vision. So how do I give people the clarity to bring them on that journey? What's expected of them? What are the behaviors I want to see as well?
So how do people know that they're doing a good job?
Yeah, exactly. And what are you expecting from them? What does success look like for you, and how do you share that with them? How do you communicate that? I think another key foundational leadership mindset shift is courage is a really big one. How do I lean into having tough conversations? I think to be clear with people is to be kind, and it's also about leaning into conversations on where people are at and where you want them to go, back them in their growth. And the only way to do that is to lean into some tough conversations. So I think courage is really important. We're going to stay on theme with the 3 C's. I'm kind of vibing with it. So we've got clarity, we've got courage. I think what else is really important is culture. It's a massive, massive part of that is you now have to create the culture. And it's not, culture isn't having your values printed, around your clinic. It's not what you're saying is on a job description. Culture is now your business's operating system. How am I consciously showing up every day in little moments and big moments that send people signals of this is the culture that we have now in this clinic? So culture is a really, really important one. I think consistency is key as well. If you're a leader, it is so important to show up consistently for your people. If you are coming in with unpredictable moods, unpredictable reactions to things, that erodes trust quicker than anything I've ever seen. And so it's so important to show up really consistently and also show up with a coaching mindset. It kind of goes back to what I was saying before about going from the mindset shift now of I do into we do. Is you don't have to have all the answers for everything now as a leader, but what you do have to have is the ability to coach those answers and problem solving out of other people. So how do I come at this with a level of curiosity in asking the right questions so that now it's not me being the only person solving the problems, it's others within the business solving that and bringing them on that journey through a coaching mindset. So I think that's the biggest shift that you need to make is what are my leadership foundations here and how does that show up? Whether you've got 1 team member, 4, 5 or 6 team members is really making that shift from an individual contributor to I'm now a leader. And that's the biggest shift that you've got to make.
Fresh Clinics is more than just a scripting platform. We're a community that wants to see you succeed. That's why our members get access to tools and resources to help them build high-performing teams, stay compliant, and grow with confidence. Head to our resource hub to check out our webinar on building your dream team, available now for Fresh members. And if you're not a member, visit Fresh Clinics to learn more about joining our community.
You covered a lot of really great things in that as well, which is amazing. It's sort of like shows that there is a lot more to think about before you just go out and go, I'm ready to bring someone else into the business. Here's a job description. Let's put it online and see what we get. If someone's going to get ready to hire someone, it's terrifying just as it is exciting. What are a couple of little things that they should look inwards or look to do before, without getting too deep into it, if they're just new to the idea of bringing on a team member, they've never done it before, like some quick little things that you think are beneficial in a small business environment?
Yeah. Great question. It doesn't need to be terrifying. I can see how it is though. It's your first, particularly if it's your first hire. Your first hire is actually one of the most critical hires that you will make, right? You're expanding your business and this is the first person that you're bringing into your vision. And so I would look at it like this is hire for culture. And obviously it is so important that someone has the right skill set, particularly we're talking in injectables and in clinics. It's important that someone has the right skills there. However, though, it is so important before you even put that role in market is to deeply think about your company's vision, to deeply think about what am I trying to achieve here? Why does this clinic exist? And what does success look like? Because if you don't have high clarity on that, how are you going to bring others into that vision? And that's what you need to do during the recruitment process, during the onboarding process, and ongoing. So I think before you get to job description and role in market stage, really think deeply around why do I exist and what does this look like and what would success in this role look like? I think that's a really important part of setting people up for success is knowing at a glance whether that person is winning or losing. And that's part of creating that clarity. And so you want to bring someone into your business that you've got really high clarity on how that role is going to meaningfully contribute to your business and to your patients and your customers. And so it's super important that you have that high clarity. Then you build the job description and then you get the role in market. And I think focus on skill sets. What skills do I need? What level of capability does that person need? But also, what are the behaviors and the attitudes that I also want to see? Because if we think of what high performance looks like, I'm going deep and wide, guys. We're covering a lot.
I'm into it.
I think what high performance looks like, it is what is someone's impact that they're having, but also what is their behavior and their attitude. That's what high performance is. It's actually meeting all of those things. So I think just to recap, get really clear on what you're looking for and what success looks like in that role so that you can articulate throughout the interview process very clearly, and that will help you find the right person as well. I mean, interviewing someone, it has to align just as much for them as it aligns for you. And so I think providing them with that means that they can come with a level of curiosity as to what the role is and what ultimately the business wants to achieve.
How do you pick up in an interview when that alignment's not there? Are there any things that you've picked up over your time that give you that indicator?
Yeah, I think if someone isn't showing a level of curiosity into what the mission is of your business, I think it's so important that during an interview process, you create space for people to highlight that level of curiosity and interest. And that means asking questions about what is the values? Like, what are your values? What does success look like for you? You want a candidate that is extremely engaged in a dialogue around the company's vision, your clinic, where you want to go ultimately. And I think it's so important that you, as a candidate, that you see them asking questions, wanting, like, they're bought into the journey, right? And I also think as well, seeing a high level of self-awareness and humility is another big thing. You want to be able to see people that can reflect on past experiences and have a real growth mindset on things that they may do differently or how they would like to show up differently.
And what about, let's say there's a business owner listening to this who thinks that's all great, but I'm an introvert and I'm not great at talking to people and I just enjoy injecting myself. But business is growing and maybe I'm thinking of bringing someone on. What are some things that someone like that could do to help set the tone for culture, that they could help build a team around what they're trying to achieve? Are there any shortcuts that allow people to get outside themselves or get past those initial barriers of awkwardness or introversion when leading people?
It all comes back to actually what is culture. I touched on this before. Culture isn't the writing on the wall or the posters. It's not ultimately what you're saying. It's actually what you're doing. Culture is built in really small micro moments. It's showing up and building trust and engaging in conversation and meeting the person where they're at today and where they want to go in the future. And so I think the key to that really is, how do you build that? If you are introverted, culture actually isn't the rah-rah moments. It's showing up really consistently as a leader. It's asking people, how are you doing today? Ask the person how they are for the person, as well as, the professional, the employee as well. And so I think don't view culture as this, I need the endless budget or the endless ideas to sprinkle glitter everywhere for my employees and take them out to a big dinner or put on this event that engages them. Culture is your company's operating system. It's all of those little micro moments. And so I think it's important to, in those moments, push yourself, and to show a bit of courage and just start small, and I think it's a part of the secret sauce here at Fresh internally when it comes to our culture is that I think there's such a fundamental understanding that our culture is the thread that pulls everything together. And I think of that in the context of a business owner, right? You need 3 probably key things, right, to run a business, and that is your strategy, that is your people, and that is your resources. But the thing that pulls all of that together, that invisible thread, is actually your culture. And you can see some interviews from some of the world's most inspiring leaders. You could take Steve Jobs as one, for example, and he did talk constantly about the importance of culture. And I think it took him 30 years to realize that in his career. And I think if you as a business owner can understand that culture isn't the words, it's just how you consistently show up and consistently create trust, you could look at it as the artifact of your relationships. And I think you can be introverted, you can be extroverted, you can show up as you are and be authentic in that. But I think your talk and your action, they have to align when it comes to culture.
What about in an instance, for example, you're a business owner, it's just yourself, you need the extra support, but you don't actually know what that officially looks like. So you're like, is that someone who does, like, is a skin therapist or a dermal therapist, or is that someone that helps me out at the office? I'm not actually clear on the job description, but also they might be someone who's a busy mum who is like just trying to do the juggle. And so sometimes it might be I am late, so I might be running behind, or I might be a little bit late with patients for going over time. And so it's not necessarily the consistent isn't there, but like, how do they still show up and have a defined, set the expectation for someone they're trying to bring on, but also, those little human bits that happen in between, how do they set that tone consistently?
I think just be vulnerable with it, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I think one of the powerful things of leadership is the importance of just being vulnerable. I think as a leader, you're not expected to be perfect. As a business owner, you're not expected to be perfect. But I think people... Excellent. I think people, at the end of the day, and I've said this to my team multiple times, that I'm not going to get it right all the time. That's the reality, right? But I want you guys to be able to call me out if I don't get it right. Or I want to be able to lead with, hey guys, like, I'm not going to be consistent this week. I am running on 2%. Kids are sick. This is happening. These are all of the things that are happening. And I think just being honest and vulnerable with that, and really showing up very authentically to let, your team know, whether it's one person on your team or 5, let them know what's going on, and lead with vulnerability and honesty. And I think that gets a long way. And that's those little micro moments I keep referring to that ultimately build trust and culture with people.
I think you said the word before, intention as well.
Yeah.
Like, lead with intention.
Yeah.
And just setting the tone that we, things are going to happen. I'm just going to comment on that from a Fresh perspective. A few weeks ago, 2 very sick daughters with influenza A, husband home. I was working from home, and my daughter, my youngest, was asleep on my chest. And I had a meeting with JH, and I was like, I'm not actually going to move her because she's sitting there on my chest. And the JH came on, and he just did not even bat an eyelid that she was there.
Yeah.
And it's that respect, that understanding, that vulnerability. And I've worked in roles where that absolutely would not have been possible. And I think that's what you talk about when you talk about good culture. It's also allowing people to feel like they can be vulnerable too, because you have that in a leader.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It's cool to talk about that from my own experience.
Yeah. Makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
That's like, we're culturing. The culture is culturing.
The culture is culturing.
That Loz can come to work with sick baby Ava. Yeah.
The other side of the people operations is some of the legal side of things, which can also be daunting for new small business owners, healthcare professionals. Do you have any hot tips? Like I know, John and I were starting and we were grabbing, this was before AI, not that that's that long ago, but we'd be grabbing boilerplate templates off websites and so on. Do you have any hot tips for people wanting to make sure they get it right, but don't have to spend a fortune on employment lawyers and that sort of thing?
I think my advice would be absolutely start small. If you are a small business owner, there is great online resources. Fair Work Ombudsman has awesome online resources. So does, I think it's biz.gov.au has great resources. I think get your foundations right. So what you do need is you need employment contracts, if you are hiring. What you do need is company policies and protocols. And all of those templates can be found with great online resources. ChatGPT is also one I would say lean into. You can set your tone of voice and you can really make it sound like you when it comes to whether it be comms or policy language. But ChatGPT now does have an Australian employment law. I would pay for that. I think it's really good quality.
Which we do not endorse, and we're not lawyers.
No,
And get your own
we're
legal
definitely not,
advice.
yeah. Good one, JD. But I think it's just important. Start small. You don't need to have this, massive template gallery of all these different templates. But what you do need is, like I said, get your employment contracts and the legal construct of your relationships with your employees down, signed, stored. The same for when it comes to policies. And then when it comes to things like performance reviews and different frameworks like that, to be honest, again, start small. You actually don't need it. The art is in your rhythm and your routine and your conversations that you have consistently with those that work with you. You don't need a performance framework. You just need to have a regular one-on-one, whether that be weekly or fortnightly. I'm a massive fan of one-on-ones. And that's your opportunity to meet the person where they're at today, what's on their mind, be able to share the vision, have conversations around growth and development. And the art of that is purely in a conversation. You don't need to document that. You don't need to have a big fancy framework, and just lean into resources that you can easily find on the internet when it comes to fair work. I think another call out, which is really important for small business owners, is also familiarize yourself with modern awards. I think it's the nursing award that would be relevant for our members and in clinic. So I think it's really important to familiarize yourself with what those modern awards are.
Can you sorry, Ali, just to go back a step, can you just explain what awards are? In general? What does that mean when you say that?
Yeah, so when we have awards, basically from the Australian National Employee Standards have a set of modern awards. And those modern awards...
They're like a certificate that you get?
Yeah, you basically get a steward to be like, congratulations, this is what you win. No, a modern award is relative to sector and to role. And what that is they are governed by a set of legal awards. And so that will impact your employment contracts if your employee falls under a modern award.
So minimum standards of pay, minimum standards of other benefits and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's really important that you are familiar with that, and if an employee falls under that, because it will be minimum hours of work, pay, etc. It will have all of the constructs in which they legally operate under in your business. So I think it's really important to be familiar with those, and you can literally do a modern award check online. And we do that here at Fresh. We will check a role through its description, its title, where it sits within the business, its leveling, and see if there is a modern award. And then you will adjust your employment contract according to that award, which you still can find the templates for online as well. So I think key is start small, do your research, and you don't need anything too big and fancy.
I think one thing that stands out for me as well is prepare before you hire, because if you bring someone on board and then all of a sudden 6 months down the track you're like, oh, here's a contract, here's HR compliance, here's like, you know, now I'm going to introduce a performance review and people, or like a performance or a chat, then that might be perceived as like a negative thing, like they're doing something wrong. Much the same with like onboarding. Like from a fresh perspective or a corporate environment, onboarding is quite typical in nature of people start, they have an induction, they're shown the business and all the employees, and in a small business, not necessarily the same thing. People might just literally start and go, here we go, let's just see what happens. What would be some advice you would give to someone in a small business of what an onboarding experience could look like, bringing someone on?
I think it's just about immersion. Like, I think start small. Again, you don't need to have this big, grand onboarding procedure. I think ultimately what you want to think is be in the mindset of what is going to set this person up for success. What do they need to know? How do I bring them into that journey? I also think having a conversation with them on how do you like to be led? How do you like to work? What is needed from me as your leader for you to feel set up for success? I think onboarding doesn't necessarily need to be owned by you as the business owner or the leader. Think of it as a co-ownership. You know, the person is also responsible for their onboarding. And so I think ask those questions early. You don't need an onboarding checklist. Agree with you, Loz. I think super important to have your contracts and your policies and the compliance side of things done up front before someone starts or in the early stages of onboarding, just so that it feels less overwhelming. It's 6 months down the track. But I think of onboarding like, what is the experience I can offer here? Not necessarily what is the checklist I need to run through in a huge, grand onboarding framework. What do I want this person thinking and feeling and doing after the first 90 days of being in my business? And so I think just create an onboarding experience that brings them into your vision and your expectations of them in the role, but also play that coaching and that curious leader on how do they also like to be led. Let this be an opportunity for you to really extract and get to know this person and ultimately what success looks like for them as well. So I think it's really focusing on the onboarding experience as a whole.
Well said.
And Ali, I'm pleased to, when I read the State of Medical Aesthetics report, to see that over 90% of the businesses in our network are owned by women. As a female leader, C-suite executive for a fast-growing company, how do you be a female boss, so to speak, if there is a difference there, and manage, you know, you've got kids to manage and home, you know, you've got a family and so on. How do you navigate that? And have you got any kind of words of wisdom to share for aspiring female leaders out there listening to you at the moment?
Yeah. Oh, great question. One that I love. I think whoever said you can have it all is a liar. I just think I look at it like this. I guess I don't know if it's words of wisdom, but I think something that I have had to have learned is that you actually can't have it all. If I am giving my all to work, I'm 1000% missing something with my kids. You know, if I am diving into the thick of being the best leader that I can be, then I've missed an assembly, or I've missed an award, or I've missed the freshly baked cookies that are needed at the kids' cake stall. If I am giving my all to parenting, I'm missing something at work. I've missed a deadline. And I think my advice would be remove that pressure. Like, you are absolutely good enough in all of those capacities. And there are some, and also like lean on your people in your professional life and in your personal life. You know, I'll say to my team, I am I'm leaning into kids this week. There is a moment I do not want to miss. Can you guys pick up the slack for me? And it's a female team as well. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And I will do the same at home. You know, I'll lean into my support network and go, I need to give 110% to work. And can you pick up the slack here for me at home? And so I think my advice would be just be kind to yourself. There is no reality in which you can run at 110% at all of the things, you know, and it's the same. And there's demands. I'm, you know, a wife and a friend and a leader and a mum and right. There's going to be this endless list. But I think what is so empowering and so freeing is just acknowledging that you just can't be it all. And be honest about it and lean into your tribe where you need it.
Yeah, and give yourself permission to take a moment for yourself as well when you need it, because work and family, and I know this from my experience as well, need that consistency of mood that comes when you're feeling grounded and have had enough to fill your cup.
Yeah, it's a really good point, JD. I think that the biggest learning that I had early in my leadership career was to lead well is to be well.
Yeah.
You know, I can't show up for the 150 people that we have in our business consistently unless I'm feeling like my cup is being filled. And that's not going to happen all the time, right? That's the reality. There are going to be things that drain my cup. But can I be honest with that? And can I recognize it for what it is and approach it differently next time?
I think also boundaries are okay.
Yeah.
And for these business owners who are, like to JD's point, you know, 90% female led, who are trying to be mums and trying to do the juggle, potentially bring on new staff. You're a business owner and you are on 24 hours a day. Like it's your business too, right? Like it's a baby of your own. So you're never, you often hear people say like, I'm never not thinking about my business, my patients, then potentially my staff. You're also, we were talking earlier today on another podcast about all the hats that you have to wear.
Yeah.
Like you have your business hats and then you also have your like not business hats. There'll always be something to do. Like the list will never be done.
Yeah.
But have the boundaries that you can help separate work and life so that you can refill your cup, I think is really great advice. Hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, practice what you preach as well. I think it's because we're just like naturally nurturing people. We always want to do well. We always want to show up. A lot of these business owners, they're in the jobs that they do because they want to give, you know, these beautiful patients like the good experience, so yeah, great advice to have, Ally.
Fresh Health is redefining modern healthcare, integrating preventative and health optimising services into nurse-led clinics. With structured medical oversight, expert consults, and streamlined systems, be part of the shift toward proactive, patient-first care. Discover what's possible at freshclinics.com/fresh-health.
What are some simple but powerful things that business owners can do to retain staff?
Oh, great question. Invest in your culture. That's probably the number one thing I would say is invest in your culture. I think people stay in roles for multiple reasons and people leave roles for multiple reasons. I think the biggest thing that I have learned is people don't generally leave businesses, they leave leaders. So I think get your leadership foundations right and really invest in your culture. We've spoken about it a lot through this podcast. I'm clearly in the right role. I'm very passionate. But get that right because people want to feel, it's human nature to want to feel like you're a part of building something that is bigger than yourself, right? And that's what I say when you need to bring people on the journey. You want people to buy in to why this business exists and what you value, right? And so I think it's super, super important. If you want to retain good quality humans in your business, keep them inspired by the purpose and keep talking about that. You say it again, you show them it's always happening. Invest in your culture, invest in yourself as well as a leader. I think that that's really important, and invest in their growth. Ultimately, people want to grow. They want to stretch themselves. They want new challenges. And to bring it back to that mindset shift now of I do to we do, it's how do you provide the awesome humans that you will bring into your business with the ability to grow and to stretch themselves and to explore new things. And, you need to be providing that constant coaching and mentorship of that. And so if you want to retain people, like, we spend most of our time at work, right? That's the reality. And you said this before, Loz, is, as a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, right? All you're doing is thinking, feeling, doing everything to do with building your business and your patients. And that can go to the same, whether that's their business or not, for when it comes to retaining staff. And so how do you continue to keep them really aligned to your purpose? How do you invest in their growth as a leader? Keep them engaged and have a bit of fun. I think don't underestimate the importance of just being silly and having fun moments at work, having a laugh. And if you don't know how many kids someone has that is working for you, what they like, what they dislike, all of that sort of stuff, then you're not spending enough time getting to know someone. We're human beings at the end of the day, and we spend a lot of time at work. And so you have to create those conditions for people to thrive and to reach their full potential. That's what you have to do as a leader. That's what you've got to deliver on. And people will stay with you for the long haul. I mean, it's building culture. It's really hard, right? And it's this consistent effort of constantly building on your values and constantly being that custodian of the culture. That's what you are as a business owner, and setting that line for integrity. But I have learned, and I think one of the biggest learnings is how quickly culture can go and how quickly it can erode. And if you don't lean into the courageous conversations, or you don't show up with consistency as a leader, it's those moments that will break trust really, really quickly. And ultimately you'll lose that culture, and then you'll lose your, the good humans that work in the business.
We've spoken about building culture. We've spoken about how to retain good staff, things to look out for in early interviews. If I'm looking to grow my team for the first time, what are those core things that I need to be thinking about? How can you simplify that, if you can, for someone who's thinking about expanding their team for the first time?
I think if you're expanding your team for the first time, the core things that you need to look out for is, what's the problem I'm trying to solve by hiring someone, right? What's that gap in your business? What's the area for opportunity in which you want someone to come in and ultimately fill that? I think as well, bring it back to, what does success look like and how do I set this person up for it? But I think, before going into hiring anyone new, be really, really clear on what they're going to be leaning into and what's the area of opportunity for this person.
Yeah, it's very easy, if your business is growing, to just grab someone and tell them to start working. It's certainly an easy mistake to make, and one that we've made before. Taking a minute just to think about what's the best thing that this person could be doing, and how do we create that job. That's great advice. That's really going to set everyone up for success.
Yeah, and I think you could think of it in three ways. What's the right person? What's the right role? What's the right time? We use that internally at Fresh as a guiding principle when it comes to hiring new people into the business. Is, people don't need to be cultural fits. I don't love using the word cultural fit, right? To your point before, JD, everyone's different. You want diversity of thought within your business, right? You don't want everyone operating in a very, very similar way. That's boring, right? We want people that are going to bring diversity to our business. But ultimately, what people need to be is, they need to be culturally additive. are they going to add to my business? Think of that as a mindset. When you're interviewing someone or you're thinking about the role, how can this role add to what I ultimately want to achieve here? And that's, how do they add to my culture? How are they going to add to the values that I've set here for this business? How are they going to add to our patients and to the opportunities that I see before myself?
Yeah, awesome. I think you've covered a lot of really great key points. One being, I think culture has come up a lot. And the other thing I will acknowledge is definitely in the right role, Chief of People and Culture, Ally. I have one more question before we wrap up. It's for you, Ally, but also JD, if you want to chime in. What is something that when you think about Fresh, and especially in the last, even 12 months, how much it has grown internally, what's something that you're really proud of when you think about the people and culture within Fresh?
Great question. It's hard to narrow it down to one thing. There's lots of things that I am proud of. I think the biggest thing is, and I said this before, is at Fresh, it is so felt that the culture is the bedrock of our business. Ultimately, it's how we show up for ourselves. It's how we show up for one another. It's how we show up for our members. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of and haven't seen across a lot of businesses in working in the people and culture space, is that is the fundamental thread. And I think that is absolutely felt throughout our business. And I think I'm also really proud that we have led courageously, in understanding the importance of that, and have made tough decisions in the past on, how do we not erode our culture? How do we ensure we have the right people there that are adding to that? And I think that is something that I'm incredibly proud to say and work at, and something that personally inspires me all the time working here at Fresh, is to work with founders and to work with fellow C-suites. That, a great example is we did a strategic offsite last week and we had our whole AU team here, and I sat in our finance workshop on goal setting. And our CFO, which is probably one of the first CFOs I've ever heard say this in such a setting, said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And that was a real proud moment for me. I was like, yes, because your leaders set the tone for culture. As a business owner, as a founder, you set that tone. And something I'm incredibly proud of is it's not just lip service here at Fresh. Like, we talk about culture, but we actually do it. Like, day in, day out, we make a conscious choice to be additive to that and to build on it. And I'm really, really proud of that. And I think everyone should be, because culture ultimately doesn't just sit within P&C, or it doesn't sit with the owners of a business. Every single person is responsible for building culture. And that's why culture alignment and, someone being additive to that is super, super important.
Yeah, it's definitely been my experience. I wave the Fresh flag with pride, and I know, it's why we all lean in and help each other so much as well, I think, and it actually feels effortless because we're all we have such a great understanding of like each other, and we lean in, we get it done, and we have fun doing it. So how about you, JD?
Oh, it's all very well said, and it's humbling to hear. But I think the thing that, amongst many things that make me feel proud, is the seamless blend from company culture to member team culture, member community culture. And one of the moments that John and I both feel very proud about is when we meet a nurse who's running a clinic, or someone else involved in the community, and they remark on how connected they feel to that culture, which is distinct in the community, and it acts as a big draw for people to feel connected to like-minded individuals, right? That prioritize kindness and humility and wanting to help each other, and that then blends to our internal team as well. And we, Meg Reed, was on the pod a few episodes ago, and she'd been working in the industry for a long time and actively sought out working at Fresh because of the culture that had been built, which we're very proud of. So that to me is, I think it's a 360 thing, right? And when the culture is good, and this can work at a small clinic level, is when the culture is good internally, that glows. And people who come into the clinic will feel that consistency of quality, the fact that people care, the fact that people have high integrity and are going to make good decisions. That stuff isn't built overnight. And I think as humans, we can sense that. You walk into a room and you can just feel that when it's beating and it's glowing, and you know it's going to be a good experience. So that, for me, is something I'm really proud of, and I think that people can reflect on in their own businesses about what does someone feel when they walk in, what's the culture that they feel, and when they're greeted at the front desk, when they have their treatment, when they receive follow-up communication, that thread of culture goes through it all. And we decide, and if you're a business owner, you decide on what is that, how does that start, and how is it reflected?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, like Ally, you mentioned this before. Great way to finish, guys, by the way. That being genuine, authentic, but also leading with a bit of vulnerability as well, because as you said, at the end of the day, we're all human. But we all, if you have that, genuine intentions, it all starts with you. Like that's really important as well. So yeah, key takeaway for me is it's okay to be a bit vulnerable. Think about how you want to lead, how you want to show up, and then that can be emulated as you bring on new team members. What about you, JD?
Yeah, I got a lot out of that. And I think showing up consistently creates that safety for people in your team, so that they know what to expect. They know how to behave to achieve the success that you're all trying to achieve together.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually got this really awesome webinar that we did with two of our awesome members, Hannah Rivers and Olivia Feltman, on building a dream team. And they really speak from their own experience, some great advice, a lot of the stuff that we've covered with you today, Ally. So thank you so much for joining us. It was such an awesome conversation. Yeah.
So cool.
Thanks, Ally.
Good to be here. Thanks, guys.